The next functional movement we're going to talk about is a squat. A squat incorporates a hinge. Okay, so there are a couple different types of squats. You're going to start in a parallel squat. So just like you started the hinge, soften your knees, place your hands on your hips, and step your feet hip width distance apart. So hips doesn't mean outside of your hips. You find hip width distance by finding your hip bones, your ASIS, these bony protrusions in the front of your hip. And you can draw a line straight down. That's hip distance for you. It's a little bit different for everybody because we all are built a little bit differently. So take your hands back to your hips. And like I said, a squat includes a hinge, but it also includes bending your knees. So you bend your knees, sit back, and stand up. So notice again, just like the hip hinge, you're not dive bombing. I see people squatting like this. There's some sort of belief that the lower the head goes, the more valid the squat is. That is not true. The squat is actually dictated by what's happening in your hips and your pelvis. So you go back like you're going to sit on a little stool, a little chair. If you're balance challenged and it's better for you to hold on to something, please do that. I rely on stable surfaces all the time. That can be a door jamb, a kitchen counter, a stable piece of furniture. Holding on is really, really important for balance and alignment, and we're going to encourage that a lot at Alkalign. So you can squat a couple times. So squatting, what is so functional about this? How about sitting on a toilet, standing up? How about sitting on a couch, standing up? We sit and stand all the time and don't even realize it until, of course, something goes awry, and then we appreciate all those things we've taken for granted. Another kind of squat that we talk about at Alkalign is a turned out squat. So this is a parallel squat. Your feet are in parallel. This is a turned out squat. So in a turned out squat, you can take your feet slightly wider. And I basically say turn your toes to 11 and 1. Everybody's position is a little bit different, but that gives you 11 and 1 on clock face. I should be specific, right? So 11 and 1 on clock face, same principles apply. It's a hinge and you get your hips back at the same time. Okay, so what happens in squatting? I mentioned that the chest comes down a lot. People drop their chest too low. You actually want to focus on getting your hips back. Your chest will stay, at the same proportion. But I notice a lot of things, especially in the parallel squats, the knees will come in or out. So if you're in a parallel squat, you want your knees to go straight forward. You can put a pillow or a Pilates type ball, a yoga block, something between your inner thighs to help with that tracking. And then I noticed too that knees in both types of squats, particularly again, the parallel squats, is the knees come really far forward. So you want to get your hips back. Look at me, I can lift my toes here in my squat. If you're here, and even I see sometimes heels lift in the squat, it probably means that your feet and your shins are tight, and that's it's negatively impacting your mobility. So we talk a lot about something called mobility at Alkalign, and mobility is the foundation for everything. We hear you have to strengthen, you have to do cardio, you have to be flexible, all these other terms and buzzwords, but mobility is actually what is most important. That's what allows your body to move. So if you're tight, something sticky, stuck, and our shins and feet are really tight because we wear these sensory deprivation chambers called shoes from a really early age. If you're tight, it's going to impact everything upstream, your feet are your foundation. So if you have knee issues, right, it might be because your alignment's off when you stand, walk, squat, whatever it is that you're doing in your daily life. So a little rolling will go a long way to helping you get your hips back. So again, just be aware if your knees are coming forward, first thing, just mindfully try to shift your pelvis back, lift your toes up a little bit just to get the idea of like the weight is back a little bit more. And if you're unable to do that, we'll talk a little more about the benefits of rolling to improve the mobility in your body, which is going to improve your alignment. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say about the squat is that there is also a belief that the lower you go in a squat, the better. And I disagree. I actually feel like really low squats over time can be really tough on your hips and your knees. And the best example I can think of is a catcher in the game of baseball. Think about catchers who are like this all the time. I don't know many catchers personally, but I do read a lot of articles about it. They have a lot of like back, hip, knee issues because it's just really hard on your body to be low. So while this might feel good, especially if you're hypermobile in your hips and your knees, this might feel like a stretch. I wouldn't encourage you to feel like you have to drop your bottom to the ground. Work in a range of motion where you can maintain core engagement, you can maintain a neutral spine, you're aware of where your knees are in relationship to your toes, where the distribution of weight on your feet is. I know this sounds like a lot of information, but that's why Alkalign is a practice. I'm just introducing concepts. This is not a one and done. This is something you come back to, right? We didn't get good at doing anything by just doing it once. You have to practice. So it's the same with movement in your body. And again, we didn't come with an owner's manual or an operating manual. We didn't go to school to learn about, movement in our body. So this is your opportunity to just learn a little bit every day. If you're not absorbing everything I share with you, don't worry about it. You can come back to it. You can come back to these videos. You can repeat this program. You can take Alkalign classes, right? It's a little bit every day. Over time makes a huge difference.